zoom out, and let's zoom back in. This is the Svbony SV135 Zoom Eyepiece, and this is also the Svbony SV135 Zoom Eyepiece. These are very identical, or very similar, with some slight differences, and I'll go over both of these and why I think that every astronomer needs to have one of these. Svbony sent me a couple of these SV135s to test, and I got to test them out in the field during my outreach activities, and they both had some really great reception. So a huge thanks to Svbony for sending this to me to test, and also for sponsoring a giveaway that you'll find out about soon, where one of you could be a lucky winner of one of these SV135s in a couple of weeks. More details on that coming soon, but huge thanks to Svbony for doing that. And in this video, I'll go over both of these eyepieces and talk about their features and which one I like more. There are slight differences, including the price. And I'll also compare this to my old school's Celestron 8 to 24mm zoom eyepiece that I've had for 13 years now. And I still use this for outreach activities, and I'm really glad I added two more. So I'll talk about this as well and how this has treated me over the last decade plus. One huge benefit of a zoom eyepiece is what you saw in the beginning of this video. You could very quickly zoom in and out just by twisting the eyepiece without having to swap something out. And as if you've ever done stargazing in the wintertime, your hands start freezing and sometimes you can't even feel the eyepiece that you're holding. So this is extremely convenient. And in my outreach activities, when someone comes up to me and say, hey, can we zoom into the moon? I can actually say, yes, give me 3.5 seconds. The 3.5 seconds includes switching the zoom and also refocusing the telescope, because you'll have to do that. Both of these are 7 to 21mm zoom eyepieces. These are actually extremely similar to the Orion 7 to 21mm eyepieces that I've used in the past, and it was also a staple accessory for the library telescope program that my astronomy club, the Amateur Telescope Makers of Boston, have been doing for a long time. I believe it started with the New Hampshire Astronomy Society a long time ago, and we've been using those kits, and the Orion eyepiece was one of those, and it looks very similar. And as we all know, Orion went out of business last year, sad. And I was wondering like where the telescopes and the eyepieces are going to come from in the future, or is the library telescope program doomed? Thankfully, High Point Scientific has taken over the program, so they'll be manufacturing the Dobsonians, and it looks like they're also manufacturing the eyepieces. I thought maybe they would use one of these, but if you look on their website and you compare what this looks like to what you see on their website, they look very similar. So maybe they have the same factory. Let's quickly go over the specs for all three eyepieces, and then we'll dig in a little bit deeper. So first, one of these eyepieces is the SV135 6-element eyepiece, and the other one is the SV135 7-element eyepiece. They both have 7 to 21mm focal length, and of course the Celestron 8 to 24 is 8 to 24mm focal length. The apparent field of view of the 6-element is 40 to 57 degrees, whereas the 7-element is 40 to 60 degrees. The same goes for the Celestron 8 to 24mm zoom. The eye relief for the 6-element is 16 to 18 millimeters. I'll dig into what eye relief really is. And the 7-element is 15 millimeters, and the Celestron 8 to 24 has a 15 to 18 millimeter range as well. Looking at the weight differences, the 6-element is obviously the lightest one at just 133 grams. The 7-element is a little bit heavier at 145 grams, and the 8 to 24mm Celestron zoom lens is indeed pretty heavy, 357 grams, and you can definitely feel it. I don't know if the design has changed over the years and if it has gotten lighter, but this is, like, comparing these two, this is fairly heavy. And they can all take 1¼ inch standard threaded filters, which is really nice. The 6-element Svbony is 6 elements in 4 groups. The 7 elements is 7 elements in 4 groups. And the Celestron is 4 elements in 3 groups. And I put an asterisk there because I couldn't really find any specific documentation that has those elements and groups listed, so it's kind of a guess based on what I was able to find on online forums. The 6-element costs $49.99 normally. It's on sale right now for $45. The 7-element is $69.99. It's on sale for $67, and the Celestron is $95. When I bought the Celestron 13 years ago, I believe I paid $55 for it, so the price has gone up significantly. So I just mentioned that both of these are currently on sale, and that's because Svbony is running a Prime Day mega sale of their products where they're decreasing prices on all their products. I'll link to their Prime Day sale page below. Click there and see what else is there. They have some really nice stuff, but both of these eyepieces are on sale. Now let's take a closer look at these eyepieces. I have all three eyepieces here, so let's quickly dive into each of these and see what they are. So the Svbony here, this is the 6-element one. You can see the eye lens here, it's pretty wide. It has some nice labeling, and we have the marker here for what zoom you're at. So it can go all the way to 7 and to 21. And this has an eye relief of between 16 and 18 millimeters. So that's the eye relief is how far you have to be from this lens in order to have a comfortable view of whatever you're looking at through the telescope. And the sweet spot tends to be around 15 millimeters for most people. If you have glasses, you want a little bit more eye relief, so like 16 to 18 millimeters is probably the sweet zone, and that's probably why I actually like this one a little bit more. I have a more comfortable time viewing through this. Other one, the 7-element one, has a smaller eye lens here, so if you compare them, you can see that the 6-element one here is a bit larger. That's the eye lens here, and it has a maximum apparent field of view of 57, but the extra lens element that is in the 7-element one lets you, even though the lens here is a little bit smaller, you can still see a wider apparent field of view at 60 degrees when you are zoomed out the most, and it looks similar. And just by holding these two, I can tell you exactly which one is the 7-element, because 7-element weighs noticeably more than the 6-element, which is interesting. And the 6-element is actually a little bit taller. It's a little bit hard to tell, but 6-element is a little bit taller. Looking at the bottom of both of these, they have 1¼ inch threads here, so I can put in a 1¼ inch filter here, which is really nice if you have like an ultra high contrast filter, or maybe an oxygen 3 filter for observing nebulae. You can just screw that on here without using any kind of filter drawer. Comparing that to the Celestron, so I've had this for 13 years. You can see that the eye lens here is larger than the 6-element one here, and it weighs significantly more. Like, yeah, it feels like it's like triple the weight, and it probably is. You can see signs of wear and tear over the last 13 years. It has a nice barrel here. It can also take 1¼ inch threads here, but one cool thing about this one is that it has T2 threads here. So I can actually screw on an M42 spacer or a T-ring for my DSLR and take pictures through there. So it makes eyepiece projection pretty easy, and I've done this a lot. The only problem is, if you look there, there's a lot of vignetting because the image circle is not what you'd get from a lens or a telescope. But it's a cool little feature. The Svbony ones do not have this, and it's not a feature that I want them to have because I rarely use that anyway. And you can get some really nice pictures using a cell phone adapter on these eyepieces. Quickly talking about chromatic aberrations for all of these. So first, with the Svbony ones, for my testing, I saw no chromatic aberrations when I used this with my SCT, which means that the eyepieces themselves don't have any chromatic aberrations, which is great. The only time I did see any kind of aberrations is when I used to test the moon on the SV520 refractor from a couple of months ago. That is a full-on achromat with a lot of chromatic aberrations, so I was able to see chroma when I used any eyepiece, really. But using these on telescopes that don't have any aberrations, did not see any. Great. The Celestron one, however, has a little bit of chromatic aberrations, probably because it only has probably has 4 glass elements in 3 groups instead of 6 and 7, so it doesn't filter all of them out. I don't know if the current version of the Celestron Zoom Eyepiece has the same problem. It may not, just something to let you know. One thing about visually observing with the Celestron eyepiece, you see very noticeable coma around the edges. It's visible, not like you have to take a picture. It's there, you can see it, which is interesting, probably again because the glass elements is not enough to make all the corrections. So when I would view, I probably wouldn't go below like 12, maybe 10 millimeters if I were to dare. So I rarely went to 8 millimeters, especially when viewing the moon, because you can see the warping of the outer edges. The Svbony ones don't have that problem, at least none that I was able to see, so the moon could be at the very edge and it would still look pretty flat. The reason I think that every astronomer should get a Zoom eyepiece is for the convenience, especially for someone who likes to do outreach like I do. Super useful, super handy, and when I have 2 of them, I can take 2 telescopes with me, or I'll usually lend one of these eyepieces to somebody else if they forgot one or they want a Zoom eyepiece. As I mentioned, eye relief is usually a big consideration for people when they're buying eyepieces, and as someone who wears glasses, I find that the cheaper 6-element Svbony SV135 fits better for me. I have a much easier time looking through this with my glasses on. Now the 7mm isn't bad. I can see through it pretty comfortably, but again, this feels a little bit better. And since it's cheaper by more than $20, in my opinion, I think that the 6-element is a better choice for most stargazers. With all that said, 7 to 21mm isn't that wide of a range of eyepieces. Sure, you can get quite a bit of magnification if you have a long focal length at 7mm, but at 21mm, even at 21mm, sometimes it's just a little too close to your target. So when you're trying to star hop, if you don't have a good finder, you're just learning, 21mm may not be wide enough. So I do recommend when people are starting out, have at least a 25 or even a 32mm eyepiece, or even a 40mm one. So I have this really old Celestron 40mm Plössl that I use, which kind of acts as like my finder eyepiece, where after I center something in my finder scope or telrad, I will use my 40mm to center it even further in the telescope itself and then switch to a much more powerful eyepiece. But a 25 to 32mm I think is a good sweet spot for a lot of people, but having something that can go down to 7mm is quite handy. With all of that in mind, I will say that even at 7mm with a zoom lens, the optics on this is never going to be as good as a dedicated eyepiece. Okay, I'm going to take that back. Never say never, because you can have some really bad eyepieces. But this is not going to be as good as a dedicated eyepiece like this Astrotech 7mm eyepiece. This is just ultra wide field. I think it's 82-degree field of view. It is fully multi-coated. The optics on this is just excellent at 7mm. And the main reason is because the glass here, the glass elements here, are perfectly fit to give you the best view possible at 7mm, whereas a zoom eyepiece has to fit their glass elements in a way that gives you a good view between their lowest range and their highest range, or the low to the high range of the zoom. And I think the Ron Swanson quote of "don't half-ass two things, whole-ass one thing" does make sense with these eyepieces. Even though this is a great eyepiece, this will never beat a dedicated 7mm, a good 7mm eyepiece. Now if you're just starting into the astronomy hobby and you don't want to go and get a dozen eyepieces of different focal lengths, then a zoom eyepiece like these is something that would be super useful for you. Especially since these are so affordable, and we've known Svbony for a few years now, and their quality has been getting better and better over the years, and these are no different. These are affordable, especially in 2025. A $45 zoom eyepiece is a really good deal. So now you're wondering, how can you put your name in the hat to get yourself one of these eyepieces for free? Let's go over the rules. Well, first, the giveaway rules is pretty simple. We're just going to enter at gleam.io. I'll put this link in the description below, so just click on it, and the only information I'm collecting from you is your first name and an email. And a winner will be chosen at random, and I'll email that user for their address. Right now, Svbony will send the eyepiece to the US, Canada, UK, France, Germany, Italy, or Spain. So if you're from a country that's not listed here and you still want to put your name in the hat, please do so, and put in the comments below where you're coming from, and I'll reach out to Svbony to see if you are chosen, if your country could be included. As of now, these are the only countries that they confirmed that they will send. And using the Gleam link, you can get up to 5 entries per person. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to subscribe or like the video, although I would really appreciate it if you would. And one winner will receive an Svbony 135 Zoom Eyepiece. The winner must respond to my email within 7 days before I go to the next person. And if you have any questions, you can ask in the comments below or ask on Discord. You can see an invite link to Discord in the description below, and also is on the Gleam website. There's nothing else that you need to do in order to enter the giveaway. You don't have to subscribe or even like this video, although I would appreciate it if you would. If you don't want to do any of those, that's fine too. And as I mentioned earlier, depending on how many people enter the giveaway, I may purchase an extra eyepiece with my own money and send it to somebody who lives in the United States. Since I'm just an individual and not a company, I'm just going to give away one to one person in the continental US to save on any kind of shipping costs. If you want to support me further, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. I do have a free tier there. And also join our discussions on Discord, where we have a growing community of astronomers and astrophotographers, and we're just learning from each other, and we would love to have you. If you have any questions about anything I covered in this video or pretty much any of my videos, please let me know in the comments below. There are many ways to reach out to me, and if you enter the giveaway, good luck to you. And until next time, clear skies.